So here we are at Kish or Kish Creek, and I'm going to be doing some IDing of some of the trees on this very small riparian zone, or I guess riparian zone with actual trees on it. I walk by this place all of the time, and I'll also be talking a little bit about Kish Creek, and referencing some IBIs or indexes of biotic integrity values, and they used data they collected from, I believe, right by this bridge. So either they collected on that side, or they collected on this side, or they collected on both. But that's what the map points at. So this is the first tree I wanted to talk about, and I see a lot of these in Big Valley, which is where I'm at. Usually they're all kind of in these floodplain riparian buffer zones or riparian zones where there's a lot of sunlight and water, obviously. And this is obviously a shagbark hickory tree. So the shagbark hickory, or Carya ovata, I think is the scientific name of this, is very, very distinctive and recognizable. Probably one of the first trees I ever learned to ID, because its bark is, well, it's literally named for its bark being super, super shaggy. And just, I mean, what else is there to say? It's a shagbark hickory. It's got incredibly shaggy bark. And there's lots of other hickories, but not many of them, as far as I know, have such distinctive bark, especially when they get to this age and this size. It's, very distinctive. Younger shagbark hickories might be harder to ID, but not so much with this. Another great way to identify shagbark hickory are their nuts, because they've got very, very thick husks or shells to them compared to other hickories, at least. Like, look how thick that is, right? It's like as thick as my finger almost. It is December and most of the leaves have dropped, unfortunately. I tried to find a good example of a shagbark hickory leaf. So this is one leaf, and each leaf has, it's pinnately compound, like I think most hickories are pinnately compound. And shagbarks tend to have like 5 leaflets per leaf. This one is got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then would be 5. I guess the other one must have fallen off, but they can have 7 per leaf. So that's another good way to at least identify it as a hickory, with those pinnately compound leaves. This might be kind of a good example of like a terminal bud. I think this is a shagbark hickory terminal bud, because they're usually pretty large, kind of like this one, and they're more elongate than other hickories as well, and they usually have these scales, these brown scales on them, as well. So I'm pretty sure this must just be a fallen branch from the shagbark hickory, and some of those buds are distinctive. You can kind of see the buds as well if you're trying to identify this more in winter. But like I said, the best way to identify the shagbark hickory is just based off that incredibly shaggy bark, which is, not only is it beautiful, but it can be also shelter for some species of animals. I'm pretty sure there are some bats that can actually like overwinter underneath the bark, which is pretty awesome. I don't know, I love shagbark hickories. They're just kind of, they're beautiful, and they're kind of awesome trees. So yeah. That was a bald eagle. I literally saw its white head. My camera's not good enough at picking up on it, but that is a bald eagle. And I do see bald eagles occasionally here in Big Valley. I also see mostly I see vultures. I do see bald eagles sometimes. So more about this creek here. It's Kish Creek. It's the major creek that runs through Big Valley, as far as I know. There's like an upper portion and a lower portion. As far as I could tell from the IBI, this was just called Kish Creek. Yeah, The major, I guess, kind of threat to this creek's kind of overall integrity is, I think, agricultural practices. As you can see, there's literally cow pasture right there, and there are so many cow pastures where this one, there's a section where the cows can just wade in the water. Most of it is fenced off though, but it's really just because there's a road right beside it. Otherwise, I don't think it would be fenced off. And so throughout the valley, there's plenty of places where cows can walk in and out of the stream. Then there's probably lots of other runoff from fertilizers and such, and probably pesticides. So it's not one of those creeks that's going to be like pristine by any chance. Like many creeks in Pennsylvania are similar in terms of being impacted by some sort of anthropogenic human activity. But I do like this creek. I think it's pretty. But let's actually get into the IBI scores. So I looked at a couple IBI scores. The first one I looked at was the PA macro invert IBI score. And it was done in 2022, literally right over there. There's been multiple done, but in 2022, the EP T richness was a 4. So that's looking at mayflies, stoneflies, and caddisflies. And so there was 4 different species they found. And then it had about a 5.2 on the Hilsenhoff index, which is an index telling how much pollution, essentially, the stream experiences based off the macroinverts that are tolerant to pollution, which it's a scale from 0 to 10. So it's basically in the middle. And then it had about a 2 for Shannon diversity index, which is also kind of like in the middle. It's not really like, wow, you have a ton of diversity, but also not like you don't have like one species. It's like relatively diverse, but not like incredibly different. Overall, the macroinvert IBI score in 2022 was 29.6. That was considering that it's a small stream, freestone creeks. Usually just means that it's the water supplied mostly through precipitation and runoff from the land as well, less from some sort of spring. And then I also looked at the habitat score, which I think was based off the Rapid Visual Habitat Assessment, RVHA score. I think it was based off that because that's what a lot of the numbers were. And or the categories that were used were the same as that is used for that habitat assessment. And it was classified in 2022. It was given a score of 126, which I believe, I'm not sure what the max score, I think it's about 200 for that index or for that assessment. So once again, it's kind of in the middle, which is, I don't know. I think there's room for improvement for sure in this stream, obviously. I mean, it's very heavily impacted by lots of farming, mostly. But it's not like terrible. It still offers some, or a good amount of life and diversity. Maybe in the summer I'll try and actually find some macroinvertebrates, but it's not really the season for that right now in terms of my own comfort. So here we have not necessarily a tree, more of a plant that I wanted to look at, which is eastern poison ivy, or the Toxicodendron radicans, or just kind of known as poison ivy. I don't know who says eastern poison ivy, but here it is on this tree. So it's a vine, or it can be a vine. In this case, it's a vine. It has these hairs on it, you can see, which I'm not going to touch because I'm kind of sure you can get a rash from, but I'm not entirely sure because I've never touched them, to be honest. But I mean, the most obvious way to identify poison ivy in the summer when it's like, beware, is those 3 leaves It's trifoliate leaves, so they're 3 leaflets per each leaf. And they're kind of like mitten shaped, but also I don't know what else, like kind of like a teardrop maybe would be the name as well, with kind of these smoothed indents in them. Very, once you know, right? Especially once you actually get a rash from it, you remember what to avoid. But another way to identify them this time of year and in the fall as well is based off these little white berries that they have that kind of form in these clusters. These European starlings. It's not letting me zoom in. Anyway, I'm not here for the birds, I'm here for the trees. And this tree in particular is also, if those are European starlings, not native to Pennsylvania, or at least to this region of Pennsylvania. But I don't really think it's considered to be invasive either. I think it's just considered to be introduced. I think maybe these ones were planted here. I don't know though. I imagine they were. There's a couple of them and just kind of in a row. All of the same age and sort of look to them, but these are also very, very easy to identify. This is the northern Catalpa. Their scientific name's pretty easy. It's just Catalpa speciosa. I thought for the longest time these were in like I think they're considered the legume family, like the black locusts and the eastern red buds and stuff, but they're not. They're in some other family. Maybe the Catalpas have their own family. I don't remember. But the reason why I thought that was because they have these giant seed pods. But there's not really like a seed pod inside. They're just kind of like these feathery things. But that's honestly these giant, I think they're also called like cigar trees or something like that because of these giant seed pods. They're way too long to be cigars, but you know, the idea was there. That's a very, very easy way to ID them, is these like hang around all winter long. And also their leaves are like these giant hearts. That's kind of what they look like. So those are also really easy, to bright green giant hearts. And another way is they don't have a terminal bud really. Usually what is their like terminal bud is taken up by either the seed pod or flowers. And then their bark, at least in these older ones or bigger ones, are kind of blocky and a very irregular kind of form to them as well. They're kind of scraggly looking, but it's pretty in a way, how like curved their branches are. So that's gonna do it for today. It is Christmas, so I have to get somewhere in like 20 minutes, so I don't really have a lot of time, but it's so nice out today. And I think in the future I'm going to go back and check out, I believe there's some basswood there on the riparian zone. There's lots of Norway maples, which are kind of unfortunate. There's black locust, black walnut. There is, I think, a mulberry, white mulberry as well. Some other tree species that I'll have to go back and look at later on. But for now, that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed.